Nebraska is 1-0. What else is there to say?
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. Maybe it's afternoon or evening. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. Let's say that there's a lot to say, and we apologize for maybe having a delay getting this to you. It's been a wild last 24-ish hours for both.
Yeah, we don't apologize. We've been laboring to get back to our podcast positions. Yeah. I just walked in the door from Kansas City. I spent almost 4.5 hours on I-29.
That is absurd. I luckily didn't have to spend extra time on I-29 on either of the trips down or back. But I have been on the air for basically all of the last 24 hours. So let's talk about this thing. Mitch, we have not unpacked this, you and I, together much, although we shared a little bit of our experiences, and we saw each other in the press box. We met another lovely fan of Locked On Nebraska.
Oh, wait. I want to mention that at the start of the second segment. So
okay. All right. We'll
hold off on that.
All right, so Nebraska wins 20-17 over Cincinnati. They're 1-0. There is much more to say than just being 1-0. Nebraska total yards 353 to compared to Cincinnati's 271. Dylan Raiola's 33 of 42 for 243 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Emmett Johnson touches the ball 32 times and has 108 on the ground and another 27 through the air. Nebraska is up 13-3 at halftime and has a chance to put it away and get it up 20-3 in the third quarter, fails to do so. And then it becomes a little interesting in the fourth quarter until Malcolm Hartzog picks a ball off with under a minute to go and finishes things off. There's a lot. There's a lot in there. There's a lot of like what's real and what's not. And let's sort through some of it.
Yeah, let's start with Malcolm Hartzog. I love this story. 5'9" senior. He's a single-digit guy who played cornerback, started 5 games at corner last year, twice in his career in his 3 years at Nebraska. He's led the team in interceptions, yet he seems to just continue to get picked on by fans and by opposing quarterbacks. In fact, on 1st and 10 from the 43-yard line as the clock ticked toward 1 minute to play in this game, and I think everyone at Arrowhead Stadium and watching on ESPN was thinking what I was thinking, which was, oh, crap, I have to rewrite my entire story. Actually, that's not what everyone was thinking, but they were thinking, oh, crap, Nebraska is about to lose another one of these games where it has no business losing, but look what's happening right in front of us. And Brendan Sorsby is marching the Bearcats down the field after punting sensation Archie Wilson had pinned them at their 9-yard line. And he gets Malcolm Hartzog to hold one of his receivers. And there's another 10 yards. And the Bearcats are in field goal range. And you know what happens if they make a field goal? The game goes overtime. But Cincinnati's not thinking overtime. Cincinnati's thinking, we're going to win this baby in regulation. And so he goes right back at Malcolm Hartzog. And there he is making an interception with his on his back, falling into the end zone, and the game is over. Malcolm Hartzog won the game for Nebraska. What a turn of events for him to have done that. Do you remember, and I wrote about this in my column that is out Friday in The Athletic, do you remember how Matt Rule's first game, which was 2 years ago this weekend, ended at Nebraska? I know you remember it ended in a walk-off field goal by the Dragon, but there was a key play late in the game that really was the backbreaker for Nebraska.
A heck of a catch Daniel Jackson in the corner of the end zone, toe tapping. I believe it was on Malcolm Hartzog. Now, that wasn't Hartzog's play to make necessarily. It was just a great play. He was in the area, but
toasted him. He shook loose of Hartzog during the route and was essentially uncovered. Jackson maybe makes that play anyway, but I think it's an interesting juxtaposition to look at that and say, this is where the Nebraska program has progressed from. Game 1, 2 years ago, Hartzog getting beat in the corner of the end zone to send momentum to Minnesota, to game 1 of year 3, where Hartzog makes the pick in the end zone at Arrowhead Stadium to beat Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, bigger picture, I was saying it to whoever would hear it around me in the press box at Arrowhead Stadium. Like, it's got midway through that third quarter and into that fourth quarter, it had all the makings. Nebraska is generally, especially from a statistical standpoint, they're controlling the game. Their defense is playing generally pretty well throughout the night. They're certainly keeping the passing game down. They only threw for 69 yards the entire night. Cincinnati did 13 of 25 for Brendan Sorsby. And they're controlling things, and it's their game, and they have a drive to stomp it out in the third quarter. A couple different opportunities to go up by 3 scores, and they fall short. They go for it on fourth down. There's either a miscommunication or something went awry on a 4th and 2 play, and didn't end up had a couple more opportunities, didn't stomp them out. And then all of a sudden Cincinnati hits with a little bit of tempo. Sorsby gets going in the run game. He runs for 96 yards, and almost all of that was basically in the fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, like you said, whoa, is this happening again? Except for they made one more play and were able to get out of there with a victory. So like there's a lot. I mean, to the idea of Mitch like progressing as a program in 2 years, maybe there's some stuff in this game where you think, it should be more. It should look better by now. And that's certainly one of the feelings that I have coming out of this game. But they're going to have to win games like this, and they showed the ability to make one more play, and that got him out of there with a win.
Matt Rule proclaimed last December that 2025 started with the Pinstripe Bowl against Boston College, and Nebraska won that game on the last possession by grinding out the clock, winning by 1 score. This is a program that's lost 35 games by 1 score since the start of the 2018 season. That is a remarkable statistic that sounds like I'm lying, that sounds like it is from a comic book or made up, or they must play 50 games a year if they've lost 35 by 1 score since the start of the 2018 season. But they have. And now Nebraska has won back-to-back games by 1 score, once with its offense, and then on Thursday night in Kansas City with the defense. There is something to be said about that. There is also something to be said for the fact that Nebraska is coming home to Memorial Stadium a week from tomorrow on Saturday, September 6th, to play Akron with an undefeated record after starting the year away from home. Do you know the last time that Nebraska went away from home to start a season and was still unbeaten the first time it ran out of the tunnel at Memorial Stadium?
2003.
That's the last time Nebraska beat a Power 4, a Power Conference opponent.
That game was
the season.
Yeah.
That game was against Oklahoma State in Lincoln.
Yeah.
The last time Nebraska started on the road or at a neutral site and was still unbeaten when the fans in Lincoln saw the Huskers for the first time was 1999. Nebraska went to Iowa, Kirk Ferentz's first team, Frank Solich's second team. Huskers had 2 quarterbacks. Eric Crouch flattened an Iowa defensive back in the second half on the way to the end zone in the starting position. Huskers won 42-7. They came home the next week to a happy crowd. Every other time this team has gone away from home to start a year, it has been sad when they've come back home because there has been a big 1 in the loss column, and that will not be the case next week.
Yeah, this is I get the sense we we did our post game show from the parking lot, and so we got to watch people kind of pour out. And I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't a celebratory mood. It was a good mood, but it was more of an exhale.
Exhale.
I
That's
think
the word I was thinking of.
From people just like, man, glad to get out of there with a win. Let's re-rack it and try again next week and see how this thing goes.
We asked the question, or it was asked to us in our last mailbag. We'll finish the first segment with this. It was asked to us in our last mailbag. I remember Matt had the question, what if ... Nebraska loses? And I thought of that as I saw the news today that Matt Rule is going to be a weekly guest on the Pat McAfee show, ESPN's Pat McAfee show, and he made his first appearance this morning. So I suppose he'll be on Fridays. This is in addition to the podcast and the mini media appearances that Matt Rule does. He's leaning hard into this public facing side of the coach. And this is all about making it cool to be part of the Nebraska program. He believes that it impacts recruiting. How would that have gone today if Sorsby completes that throw and Malcolm Hartzog does not intercept it at the end?
Not very well.
Would they have still done it?
I don't know.
Well, Coach, you're going to join our show every Friday. Sorry about that loss last night.
Yeah, how'd that one feel last night? No, it wouldn't have gone over well. I don't know that. We'll see how that goes anyway. It'll be kind of interesting because the second they do lose, the comments come out about how he should be going on less podcasts and doing more coaching and things like that. But he's clearly prepared to deal with all that, considering all the places he's put himself over the last month or so.
At least he won't have to go on the morning after a loss because there are no more Thursday games on the Nebraska schedule. There's a Friday game, but that comes after his McAfee appearance. So, all right, we're going to come back. We're going to tell that story about the press box at halftime. And then we're going to talk about our major concerns and the bright spots for Nebraska coming out of a week 1 victory. That's next. But first, a message from Gametime, because in case you didn't notice, college football is back. And we could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing quite like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself, especially if you don't play. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I like to use Gametime. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. This is the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. The app makes it simple to view the seats from your phone. You can see them right there on the app. You can take advantage of zone deals. I love trying that out. With zone deals, you pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, you save the money. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets, college football tickets, with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Welcome back. Delayed Friday edition of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. If you're listening to this on Friday, thank you for being a loyal listener. If you're listening to it on Saturday, that's fine too. Welcome to week 1, the first big college football Saturday of the season. Hope you're enjoying Texas, Ohio State, and all that this great first weekend has to offer. On Monday, because it's Akron week, we're going to not focus on breaking down Nebraska's week 2 opponent. I'm sure we'll get to it at some point during the week. We'll mention a player or two that the Zips have. Maybe we'll reminisce about the 2018 rainout game, thunderstorm game.
Probably.
We are also on Monday going to look back at some of what was going on at Arrowhead Stadium outside of the playing field. I want to take the few fans from Nebraska who didn't attend the game and give them a look at Nebraska appearing in an NFL stadium, what it was like in the parking lots before the game, what it was like during the game to be at Arrowhead, take you into the press box. We'll look at this this event, the KC Classic, that they are going to do annually, and what it's like for college football. More about the circumstances around the game. We'll talk about the Chiefs who were on the field. Patrick Mahomes was on the field. If you didn't notice, Taylor Swift was at the game. I don't know if that was brought up on the ESPN broadcast, but at halftime, Connor, I was making my way, I think, over to the jars of candy that were hanging on the wall in the press box. I'm sure you saw those.
Oh, I indulged in a big cup of Skittles. Yes.
Yeah, I had some Skittles. I had some of the Sour Patch types that were in there. And I saw you. And we saw each other across the room, and we made our way, and we embraced. And we chatted for a few minutes. We were talking to Damon Benning. We were talking to Nebraska's voice, color commentary voice on the Huskers radio network, the former two-time national champion running back.
And we
were approached by a young man, and I'll let you finish the story.
Yeah, I believe it was Brady.
Okay, was it? Because I couldn't remember his name.
It was. I think
I didn't get his name.
So yeah. And we should have asked him more questions. I assume he was working for KRNU. The
it was
radio.
that, or it may have been the Unlimited Sports, which is part of the UNL College of Journalism ventures. He was definitely a student in Lincoln.
It's us three, me, you, and Damon. We're standing there, just chit chatting about the game, whatever. So far, it was at halftime, and Brady comes in and he breaks up the huddle. And usually in these situations, it's very easy to figure out what's going to happen. Damon, it's so great to meet you. My at this point, it's probably like my dad grew up watching you or something my like grandpa. That. Come on. But yeah, Damon, I listen to your show every day. It's awesome, whatever it might be. And it was as if Damon did not exist whatsoever. And he said, Connor, Mitch, I love your podcast. I listen to the podcast every single day. I just had to shake your guys' hand, and never was Damon Benning acknowledged in the conversation in the trio there. And
right. This is the risk that you run. If you are having a conversation somewhere with not one, but two hosts at the same time of the Locked On Nebraska podcast, this is the risk that you run as the third wheel in that conversation.
And Brady sort of walked away and
this does not happen to Damon Benning.
Damon was like, are we going to talk about what just happened? You're like, yeah, well, it happens all the time. We just had to play it cool in that moment. So we love when people, it's amazing. I know we talk about this often on the show, and it's not like we get recognized in public or anything like that a lot, but whenever we do, I listen to the podcast or I watch the podcast on YouTube, not the variety of other things that we may or may not be known for.
So I would like to extend an invite to our young fan. We would like to have you on the show. This is going to be week 1 of Nebraska football at home. I think that he has some insight to offer us about how things feel on campus from the student perspective. And I would like to get that at some point this week. So I hope you are listening.
Yeah.
Brady. I hope we have your name right.
I think it's Brady.
I'm sorry that we didn't get to talk to you longer, but he was working and in a hurry to get back to his job. So reach out to us. And at some point this week, we will have you on. We will chat about the excitement on campus around this Nebraska football team ahead of its home opener.
Let's do it. I love it. Yeah, we got some stuff to do over the next couple of weeks with Akron and Houston Christian coming to town. Okay, so a couple things here. Should we go to the concern areas first?
I think so.
So the brightest one, I guess for me, is something that we talked about quite extensively all off season long. What happens when Emmett Johnson is not in the game? And well, there wasn't many opportunities to answer that question because both of the carries, the one carry each for Mekhi Nelson and for Isaiah Mosey, did not go particularly well. Now, it's a small sample size, but clearly, I mean, they loaded Emmett up, 25 carries. I would have had the under on that one. We might have picked that on this show, but running back depth behind Emmett is quite the concern. Not necessarily that they have to play a second guy or that they have to play a third guy, just not having an option behind Emmett was pretty glaring to me.
It's dire. I don't think it's good. I do think that Nebraska is going to get quite a bit more from Isaiah Mosey and Mekhi Nelson, but especially Isaiah Mosey. And I think these next two games are going to be an opportunity for him to break out. He just didn't get the ball in, and this is somewhat on Dana Holgorsen, I'd say. Like, they didn't put him in positions to succeed. He took it twice and tried to go wide, once on a short pass and then once on a rush. He got -2 yards on the rush and 2 yards on the reception. Cincinnati had it sniffed out. So Nebraska's got to be better about what it does when Mosey comes into the game. He can't come in and then all of a sudden what you're trying to do is run him wide around the edge. And perhaps Holgorsen and Nebraska thought, well, nobody's seen him. He's a true freshman. He's not on film. Cincinnati knew. Cincinnati knew what he was in there to do. And Nelson, he went the wrong way. Like, he took the handoff and was immediately flat-footed and swallowed up for no gain. So these guys are going to improve. It was a rough introduction for both of them, but they're young, and I think that these next 2 weeks are going to offer them both a chance to get their footing. It better, because Emmett Johnson cannot be touching the ball 32 times a game. He is going to get destroyed in the Big Ten if that's the case. He will not hold up. He's in better shape. He's in great shape, but that is too much for him to handle. And Nebraska lost Janiran Bonner in this game. The injury sounds as if it's serious to the offensive Swiss Army knife that the Huskers have enjoyed and plan to enjoy. He had 2 carries for 4 yards. One of those ended in a fumble out of bounds, and that's when Bonner was injured and put no weight on one leg as he hobbled to the sideline. So don't expect that he's going to be back anytime soon, if at all, this season.
Yeah, dire it's probably a pretty apt word for it, I suppose. Emmett Johnson is a good player. But like you said, 32 touches in the game is not going to hold up over a long period of time. They need to have other guys that they can put in the game that they feel like they can trust. And right now they just don't have that. I mean, it's great that they feel like Mekhi Nelson and Isaiah Mosey are coming along to the point where they can put them in the game, but clearly, I mean, that game was basically close throughout. It was within a 10-point game all the way throughout the entire game, and they didn't feel like the spot was right to have them in there, and so they just loaded up Emmett. So that tells you a lot about what they truly think about the guys behind him at this moment. That doesn't mean they can't get better. It doesn't mean that they won't over the next couple of weeks, especially like you said. Those carry numbers are going to come down. They need to come down for Emmett over the next 2 weeks, especially. But it's a real thing. It's a problem.
The other thing I think we need to mention here with the concerns is Nebraska's rush defense and the defensive line in general. No sacks for Nebraska in this game, and some of that is because Sorsby is an elusive runner, and he got free for 96 yards and gave Nebraska fits with his ability to scramble, especially in the second half. But Williams Nwaneri, this is more in the bright spot. He was a guy who did get free into the Cincinnati offensive backfield and created some pressure, but really it wasn't there aside from him. They didn't seem to get that much of a push up front defensively. The Bearcats ran for 202 yards. Now, almost half of that was the QB, but that's That's not going to fly. Like Nebraska's not going to win many games this year when it gives up 200 yards on the ground.
See, this one is not as big of a concern for me. Even though we're talking about the defensive line versus like a second running back, I understand that the defensive line it's significant, but I think this is probably a little bit more game related. Like you said, Sorsby doing some things outside of the pocket, and I think they were a little loose in terms of not being in the right spot, a little loose early. And then in the middle, it was pretty dang good. It was pretty cohesive, I thought, as the defensive picture, because it works as one total picture. And then, it's a lighter defensive line in a weight perspective, obviously, compared to the Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmaker defensive line from last year. It's lighter, but the idea is that it's more explosive and then it can bring pressures from different places and stuff like that. And I still do think they'll have that. They won't be playing as many quarterbacks who can, be quite as elusive as Sorsby was, especially when he was hot there in the fourth quarter. So this one isn't quite as big of a deal to me, or at least it's not as dire as the word you said earlier.
Okay, let's take a break, come back, talk about bright spots from Nebraska in its opening game. That's next. Our word right now from Locked On, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertisers. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey, and you can find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out.
And one more word from Upside. Fans of the pod, listeners of the show, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. I'm talking right now. And start earning cash at the pump today. That long road trip, maybe longer than you wanted it to be to and from Kansas City. Why not get paid basically to do so? Use our limited time promo code football and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas that you already needed, that you already were buying. Don't think it's too good to be true. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card from Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using the limited time promo code football for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code football. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. All right, welcome back. Connor Haber, Mitch Sherman with you here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Nebraska is 1-0. They beat Cincinnati 20-17. They do not cover. Much like many of the other Big Ten teams that played on Thursday night. Minnesota does not cover against Buffalo, and Wisconsin does not cover against Miami of Ohio. So slower start in week one. There's some week one stuff that's obviously going on. We'll have a lot
Rutgers.
of time to think back. Yeah, did Rutgers get the job done? I didn't.
Rutgers won. I don't know if it covered. Everyone in the Big Ten who played won on Thursday night.
They were able to get the job done, at least start 1-0, although maybe not in as pretty of a fashion as you might have imagined. So bright spots, Dylan Raiola completes about 80% of his passes. He also threw it 42 times. So I don't know if that's as much of a bright spot as it is, doing your job and doing what was asked of at that point. That's what we kind of expect out of Dylan Raiola if he's put in that situation. He had a lot of 5 to 7 yard throws basically all night long. But I thought the receivers were kind of where I would go to first, even though they weren't sent on down the field stuff more than, what people wanted to. But Dane Key, 6 catches for 51 yards, and Isaiah Hunter, 6 catches for 65 yards. Both came up with pretty big plays. Hunter with a catch, obviously in the end zone for the touchdown. And then Key caught a touchdown on a key fourth down conversion, right at the goal line there. So I thought both of those guys were as advertised.
Yeah, 5.8 yards per passing attempt for Raiola. That's not exactly what Nebraska's looking for. It is hard to argue with the completion rate, but they want to be able to go downfield, and I think they will be able to go downfield. I don't want to overreact to Nebraska appearing to focus more on the shorter routes and like the lack of use of tight ends beyond Luca Lindenmeyer, who caught 5 passes. Like, you would like to see Heinrich Harburg and Carter Nelson get involved more, and I think we will. I think we will see Hunter and Key turn out to be deep threats, especially Hunter showed a lot of athleticism in that game. Cincinnati plays a style of defense that encourages the kind of passing game you saw from Nebraska on Thursday night. Tyson Veit,
it's challenging.
The Bearcats, the Bearcats DC, who's in his second year there. He was at Iowa State for a long time before that, and Matt Campbell loved that style of defense that Veit brought to the Cyclones, and it was tough. It was tough to get going against, and it was a good system to use against Raiola. I think Dylan Raiola from last year, and Dylan did make a couple mistakes on Thursday night. He fumbled on a keeper and was lucky to get it back, and he was also lucky not to commit a turnover on that fourth down throw to Emmett Johnson that could have been 6 the other way. In fact, the fumble could have been 6 the other way too, if Dylan didn't grab it. So those aren't going to go bounce that direction all season, but he didn't commit a turnover. That's the bottom line. And there were times where I think he was very savvy about the clock. Rule brought up the sack that Dylan took on second down in Nebraska's last offensive possession when Cincinnati was burning its timeouts ahead of the 2-minute warning. If he throws that ball away, and then and it really doesn't make much of a difference if he does, because then Nebraska just saves a few yards on the punt, which was near midfield anyway. Cincinnati has an extra timeout on its last drive. And I don't know if that changes the last drive. Like, they probably still have it in their pocket with 33 seconds left or 34 seconds left at the end, but maybe not. Maybe Cincinnati structures that last drive a little bit different if it knows that there's a timeout. Maybe it hits a big play that didn't happen in the way that it played out. So that's something that could have actually saved Nebraska the game. I think Dylan showed a lot of maturity and took the things that were there for him, ran it a couple of times. He was serviceable on the RPOs, the little RPO that he ran to Luke Lindenmeyer that got Nebraska in position to score in the first half before Elijah Pritchett's false start on 1st and goal at the 1, which is terrible. That was a nice little wrinkle from the Huskers too.
Yeah, I thought poised is a good word. I mean, they had to have been frustrated. It had to be frustrating, kind of just going through that. They were playing basically just 3 high safeties. Said, look, we're not getting beat over the top. Your big play wide receivers are not going to do it against us tonight. So you have to just hit these short throws over and over and over and over again, and then you might earn some points at the end. But maybe, right? So I'm sure Dylan wanted to uncork some. I'm sure Dana was trying to get something going down the field and just never kind of found the right time. That there was just a lack of a rhythm there that I thought was really induced by Cincinnati, and they did a pretty good job with that piece of it. But with that being said, Dylan did what was asked of him, and those, I don't think he'll probably throw 42 passes in a game again this year.
You think that's going to be the high? I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to depend on Emmett Johnson's health and
maybe
how much they want to put on him, because you got to do something. You have to run or you have to pass.
Yeah. So there was definitely, I thought the defense, was pretty dang good outside of the fourth quarter, and then just a little shaky at the start where they were creasing a couple runs in the middle of the field, but they were doing a lot of side to side stuff. And especially, how could you go wrong with only 69 yards through the air? So you got to credit the defensive backfield for doing their job in that regard. And that's a unit that we all thought highly of coming into. And I thought they were as advertised.
They made big plays. They made 2 big plays, two that stand out. The fumble that Vincent Shavers caused, that Williams-Winery led to Nebraska's first touchdown in the red zone. And then, of course, the play by Hartzog at the end. Like, that's the thing that John Butler has preached all through the offseason. And you can nitpick about Butler. I don't even know if it's nitpicking. I thought he got caught flat-footed when Cincinnati changed the tempo in the second half. Like, maybe a more seasoned defensive coordinator or a more seasoned defensive front seven in general, front six, does a better job of adjusting to that and stops some of that momentum before Cincinnati gets to the end zone on both of those drives. And nearly on the third one. I guess they did on the third one. So credit to them for getting it done at the end. But that's just a guy making a play. Opportunistic, both of those defensive situations. And Nebraska doesn't win the game without either one of those. It also doesn't win the game without solid special teams play.
Yeah.
Kyle Cunanan, this is the final bright spot we'll talk about. Kyle Cunanan, the new kicker, transfer from Charlotte, hits a 52-yard field goal to get Nebraska on the board in the first half. Archie Wilson, 2 of his 4 punts downed inside the 10-yard line. He made Cincinnati have to drive 90-plus yards to score a touchdown to win the game. That helped Nebraska preserve victory. He, of course, was featured on ESPN. Yeah. Sorry. I like it. And, it was a bit of a mixed bag otherwise in special teams. Nebraska has to, I think, set up the blocks better on punt returns. Ja'Cory Barney can't lead the nation in punt return yardage if he's got 3 coverage players in his face when he catches the ball. And the kickoffs were not great. Kicked one out of bounds, kicked a couple others that were short.
Yeah. But 2-0, like you said, in the turnover category. They don't turn the ball over. They grab a couple, including the game sealing one at the end. Plenty of good things to go off of in this one, but plenty of stuff to go back to work on. And we'll dive through all of it, and we'll see what Matt Rule thinks on Monday when he grinds the tape and all those things, and we'll have the breakdowns of that for you as well. Okay, thanks for
get ready for the Zips
this weekend. Yeah, the Zips, who scored 0 points against Wyoming in week 1. So we'll see what kind of challenge they present. And maybe we'll go some other places with the pod this week as well. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. And we remind you that it's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. Who knows? One of us might show up on that show at some point this year. A college football preview only Locked On could do. Catch College Football Kickoff, every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV.